Welcome back to the Weak Desires podcast. It has been quite a bit, but we're back again, just doing what we do before, just reviewing albums and just hanging out, having a good time. And I wouldn't be doing this without my buddy Scott. So of course I've got Scott here. How you hanging, Scott?
Man, I've done a lot of soul searching and just through prayer and petitioning the Lord, I just really felt like it was time to do this again. So we're back, baby.
Amen. We are back. And a lot has gone on, at least for me, since the last time we did this. I
Really?
I got engaged and married all within a year. And yeah, moved obviously. Uh, and I mean that's pretty much it for me. I mean, it's yeah, but a lot has gone on in the midst of that. So
Listen, man, you got hitched. That's all you need to have going on.
yeah,
Heck yeah.
cool. Well, we're gonna start off with going ahead and just listing off the top 10 albums that we had for 2023. I was kind of maybe a little disappointed with overall album amount for not album amount, but album quality maybe with 2023. Of course, I was busier, so I didn't get a chance to listen to as much as I had in previous years, but I still managed to get a top 10 list and then maybe an honorable mention or two. So, Scott, I'm gonna let you go first. Let me know what you had for maybe not a top 10, but just like 10 albums you would recommend, either or.
Yeah. 2023 was a disappointing year for me too. Came and went and I'm still single, so you know, can only do so much, but one thing that did happen was there were some good albums that came out. Um, like I was telling you before, not a super dense year in terms of releases. There were quite a few records I did enjoy quite a bit, which is what we were going to get into today. I will say I did have to do some slimming down on my long list of my favorite albums of the year. So there was some decisions that had to be made, although not as bad as other years. So I feel really good about my top 10 from 2023. And so just getting into it, at number 10 was a record that came in hot right at the end of December, or not the end of December, but in December at the end of the year. It's by a band called Have Mercy. The record is called Numb. Chris, we've seen Have Mercy at least once together. They're a band that really is near and dear to my heart. They're a band that I really got into when I was in college, and just for whatever reason, I really connected to their emotionality and the rawness of pretty much a lot of aspects about them, from their musicality to Brian, the vocalist's vocal delivery, to their lyrics. There's just a rawness and a realness that really um, drew me to them. And they don't sacrifice sounding good for the sake of sounding raw. Their all of their music is really clean and it sounds good. It's like I said, they don't sacrifice sounding good for the sake of authenticity. But their new record, Numb, it sounds like a spiritual predecessor, or not predecessor, but it sounds like a follow up to their probably their biggest record, The Earth Pushed Back, um, in that it does sound a lot less polished than their previous few efforts. Um, and not in a bad way at all. I think, and I could be mistaken, I think they retrieved some of the old members from when they made their first record. So that could definitely be attributed to that. But yeah, this record and the fact that this came out in December and made my top 10 says something because I didn't really have that much time to chew on it, but it's just everything I love about them, for sure. And I've listened to it a good bit since it's come out, and my placement on my top 10 has only, I'm only more convinced that it deserves to be there. So that is Have Mercy by Numb by Have Mercy. And yeah, just a really good kind of, I don't want to say pop punk, kind of emo in that vein. Um, so yeah, just really, really solid stuff. Next up for me, and there is a sad boy trend throughout most of my albums. It's just one of those years, you know. But next up is by Trophy Eyes. The record's called Suicide and Sunshine. What I They're another band that I got into a lot in college, and when I got into them, I was really just looking for the most just depressing music I could find, and they definitely delivered on that. And their newest record, Suicide and Sunshine, is really it's such a contrast in certain aspects because there's really upbeat and like almost not pop rock, but like just really upbeat rock sounds going on, and there are definitely some emo, you know, sad pop punk moments too, but it's really there's a lot of upbeat moments on this record, but lyrically it's all very sad. And just that contrast is really interesting to me. And so yeah, just this record is a lot of fun to listen to. Mainly if you're not paying attention to the lyrics. If you're looking to be in a contemplative mood, then you can listen to the lyrics. But yeah, this record is really solid. I definitely enjoyed it more than their previous album, The American Dream. Um, but yeah, this one's a lot of fun. I really like this record, and I'm glad that because they hadn't released a record in quite some time. So to have them come back strong was a very nice surprise. Next up is a band called Heart Attack Man. Another band, Chris, that we've seen together. They opened up for Knuckle Puck right before COVID 2020, so have some distinct memories of this band. Their new album, Freak of Nature, is absolutely a step up in terms of pretty much any aspect in regards to their previous effort, which I also really enjoyed. Their vocalist Eric has very much so grown in confidence as a frontman. The way he has, you know, just gotten stronger as a singer. Um, is really on display in this record, and it's just really catchy pop punk, and just makes me happy. It's really just catchy and fun, and just a really easy listen. Next up for me is a departure in style, which is Silent Planet, their album Super Bloom that came out this past year. Um, Silent Planet's a band that in previous years would have a firm spot in my top 10 no matter what whenever they released an album, and in recent years I'd kind of fallen off the hype train a little bit. It just for whatever reason it just didn't move me as much as it did before. um and then they started putting out singles for this record, and as soon as I heard some of them like for the first time, I was just like, okay, I'm back on the train. And as soon as this record starts and kicks in after the intro, I knew I was probably the most excited for Silent Planet that I had been since like 2020 or before that. Just such an interesting record because it's, you know, really heavy, and there's some, you know, awesome breakdowns that, you know, make you want to punch drywall and all that good stuff. But also there's a lot of experimental stuff going on here. Um, this is also the first record that Garrett, the vocalist, is doing most of the singing, which I thought that to be a really nice differentiation from their previous records. Just it, if nothing else, it was, you know, something fresh. And between that and then just little tweaks to their style of like, adding some different electronic elements, it just really freshened up their sound for me in a way that made this record probably my favorite record of theirs in like maybe since like 2016. So yeah, Super Bloom by Silent Planet, just really awesome and interesting listen. Next up for me is by a band that has consistently been in my top 10, Knuckle Puck. Their record that came out last year is called Losing What We Love. And gosh, I think I've probably seen Knuckle Puck live more than like almost any other band over the past couple of years. It's just such like up my alley. You know, their niche or whatever of pop punk. And that is definitely capitalized on in their new record. What I appreciated about this one, and I liked their previous album a lot, 2020, which cheesebally enough came out in 2020. But I liked that record a lot. What I really liked about this one was they hit some more aggressive notes and some more melodramatic notes that is part of what really connects me to them in the first place. And hearing them kind of return to that really drew me to this record. And yeah, it's just really, really good pop punk record, front to back. There's not a song on this record that I don't like. Next up is a band called Holding Absence. Um, the album is The Noble Art of Self Destruction. This is a band that, if they had come out in like 2009, I'd be like, middle school Scott would be like completely over it. Like, it reminds me of music I really got into when I was starting to get into the more distorted music to begin with, like scene music, I guess. It's really angsty. Um, it has its heavier moments. It's not like a heavy record by any means. There's not really any screaming, but they definitely have their more, aggressive moments on it. But just the way that it goes hand in hand with the angsty lyrics and vocal delivery from Lucas. It really is a nice cocktail that just works really well for me personally. Next up is a band called Enter Shikari, and I believe the very first time we did one of these episodes, um, I had mentioned their previous album, which was called Nothing Is True and Everything Is Possible. They're a band that I've kept up with since then, and just a band that has always been really interesting to me. When I first listened to Enter Shikari, when I was probably in high school or middle school, it's just such a stark contrast of styles seemingly going on, because I had enjoyed the whole like Rise Records electronic horror scene that was going on at the time, but it just seemed like Enter Shikari was like that times about four. And so it kind of turned me off for a little bit. And then kind of once I grew up a little bit and just could put my finger on what was actually going on, it really opened me up to them and made me appreciate them. And their new record is probably their most palatable. It's called A Kiss for the Whole World. Um, yeah, I would say that this record is probably the most like, it'd probably be, if someone was like, tell me to listen to a record by this band and they've never heard of Enter Shikari before, I would probably put on this new one. It has their signature electronic moments. And what I really like about this one is that for the longest time, they've not really had much of like a natural drum and guitar sound consistently throughout the record, like throughout their records, like it would show up every now and again, but it was really heavily electronic. Um, and on this one, they really bring back from like their early stuff of like just raw drums, guitars, and there's of course still the electronic aspect of it, but just having those raw elements back really did a lot in helping me like really connect with this record. So yeah, this A Kiss for the Whole World, super fun, really unique, and Enter Shikari is just a really unique band to begin with. But yeah, next up is a band that are I would consider to be scene legends. Um, a band called Story of the Year. Um, they're a band that I have long adored. Just really great emo post-hardcore band. And they're a band that has not been consistently active over the past 10 years or so. Um, they finally are the most full-time that they've ever been, and it's just been nice to have them back doing that dang thing. And they put out a new record last year called Tear Me to Pieces, and it was, I don't even want to say a return to form because they never really lost it, but it just was it's always nice when you have an old favorite that puts out just a complete banger of a record and you're like, yeah, maybe they never lost it, maybe they've stayed that good. What I really liked about this one is and this is typically a naughty phrase in when we're talking about albums, but um, I'd read somewhere that they'd done some co-writes on this album with some of the songs, and I think that honestly really helped them out a lot in terms of keeping their sound fresh and keeping it not repetitive, and doing different things, like in terms of it could be just the way a riff sounds or an effect or a melody that maybe has more like pop sensibilities, whatever. I feel like having extra hands on it actually really helps them. And I know a lot of times when people hear co-write, they think, oh, someone else is just writing your stuff for you. But that's, first of all, that's not true. But also, I think having those extra opinions and perspectives really help them out on this one. But yeah, Terry to Pieces is just really good paced record too. It's I think it's 11 or 12 songs, but goes by super quick. So yeah, definitely a highlight of the year for me. My number two and my just a forewarning, my two and one are both very sad records, very sad boy records, and they're both very emo. But they just really spoke to me this year and just really I connected with it on a musical and tonal level. Number two is by Youth Fountain. The album is called Together and Lonesome. Um, just the angstiness and the melodramaticness of it just really, it just hit the spot for me. I don't know what it is. It just the the melodies and like the choruses and verses, like it just everything, it was a perfect storm of a record for me. And it was a record that once it came out, I just did not stop listening to it. It really just I would just keep going back to it, and it was like each time I would listen to it, I would have a favorite song from it, and I would have a different favorite song from it. And so just really really love this album, love this band. I think they're really underrated right now, but yeah, Youth Fountain's new record Together and Lonesome is just a incredible pop punk emo record that really flies by in terms of its pacing. But next up, my number one, my top record of the year, who also had my top record of 2020. Yeah, 2020. I'm making sure I'm getting my years right. 2020. It's a little band called Hot Mulligan, who the last time I probably talked about them on this show, they were not as big as they are now. Um, They are a band that has quite exploded on the scene. They, I think last time we saw them, they it was at Motorco, and it was to maybe 400 or 500 people tops, I would say. And they are now selling out the Fillmore, House of Blues. They're going on tour with Fallout Boy in the spring. It just makes me really happy to see this band just do so well. And it's very much deserved because their new record, Why Would I Watch, is just incredible. There's a lot of different aspects about it that really drew me to it. Um, they're another band like Trophy Eyes where they can have really kind of like poppy and catchy aspects of it while simultaneously being, really lyrically depressing. And once again, that contrast just really is interesting to me, and I'm kind of drawn to that. But yeah, I just absolutely love this record. Front to back, there's not a song on it that I don't like, and I've probably listened to this record more than any other record this year. So if by default, I would say this is my record of the year. But yeah, it's just so good. Hot Mulligan is the band right now. Really stoked for them, and yeah, love the new record, and that's my number one. Chris, what about you, buddy?
Nice. That's a solid list. I think out of all that, I only have one album that I share with that. So I'll get into that, which one
Let's
that
go.
is in a bit. Yeah, I kind of have more of a metal phase, as you know, I'm a big Core for Life kid.
Right.
And so that never really leaves me. And yeah. So getting into, but it's not all just metal. So like the first, I don't want to say there's one or two albums that I'm gonna mention as like a honorary mention because I just listened to this album today and I was like, oh, you know what? I actually really like it. Chris Stapleton's Higher is really solid. It came out like November of last year, and I was listening to some of it this morning. I was like, it was pretty good, you know. So I just want to mention that. I did also listen to Hot Mulligan and did like that a lot. But it's been a couple months since I listened to that. I think I only listened to it once or twice. But to actually get into like my 10 here, the first one I'm going to start with is Lauren Daigle's self-titled album, which that um that surprised me. Like I have a weird, I feel like a lot of CCM can be kind of hit or miss, but she kind of I felt she really stepped out of that and more into like an R&B type thing, and it's really good. It's like I didn't care too much for the couple like ballady songs on them because I felt like I've just heard them all before from her. But like songs like Kaleidoscope Jesus and like all those other ones that are just have a lot more groove to it and just like I would not expect from just like a CCM artist or like I thought that's what I at least thought she was. I guess she's still in that realm of it, but anyway, that really surprised me. I This is the first part of it because she eventually reached. It's weird. Her self-titled album is like pretty big, and she released like part of it in May, and then the rest some other time. I can't remember. I'm not gonna look it up, but that really surprised me. I really liked it. I listened to it a good handful of times. Number nine is a band I just discovered last year in 2023 called The Arcadian Wild. The album's called Welcome. Really good, like bluesgrass. Think like Punch Brothers or like Nickel Creek, um, that sort of thing. Like a very modern, progressive bluesgrass, whatever. Um, I think my now wife had heard of a song called Blue Eyed Girl that we liked, and uh, I really liked because my wife has blue eyes. Uh, so then I was like, oh, they have a new album. Let me listen to it. And it's just like very much in that realm of music that in that, genre of bluegrass and all that. So I don't listen to that genre very often, but when I do, it is very just refreshing, I guess you could say. So very much like that. The next one, number eight, I'll say is Lacey Sturm's. Uh, I think it's her second solo full length album called Canonic Metanoia. I think I pronounced that right. There were some singles for like a couple years ago that were on this album, so I'm surprised it took as long as it did. But I just love her voice. It's easily one of my favorite like rock singer voices, and so there's a lot and it's a good balance of like some of them are kind of ballady, but but her voice really works in that. And there's some other ones that are more a bit more hardcore, um, or go a little harder. That her voice also works in that. So it's really nice how her voice works both in that realm, uh, in the rock or hard rock genre. So I don't even call it metal specifically, but still very, very good. Um, and then next I'll say number seven is Metallica's 72 Seasons. This is the one I've had. I wasn't even really gonna consider it a top 10, maybe, because it's just so, I don't know, this was like the first album of theirs that I um maybe didn't care for a couple of songs or like some parts of the songs because they're just known for like having really long intros, um and maybe just like some unnecessary like repeating riffs and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely a lot of songs I do like on this. Screaming Suicide and You Must Burn are a couple examples there. I do like a lot of the riffs on these, and it's really nice as being Metallica being my favorite band that there's a lot of stuff I can play on guitar too. So when this album came out, I would just listen to it a ton and just try to learn how to play these riffs by ear or look them up either way. So still a very much Metallica album. Uh, by comparison, it's probably one of their worst, but given that a lot of their greatest albums were in the 80s, like it's hard to beat that. Plus the solos are kind of just meh. Like I really wish Kirk would just kind of stop sounding like a pentatonic mess. And he's like stood his ground on this. He's like, no, I'm just gonna do this, and it's just I feel like his playing is just kind of getting worse and worse as the years go by. But they're still a great band live. Like I saw them back in 2019, and that was like easily one of the best concerts I've been to, just in terms of performance and all that. So they still hold up. Um, and I'm not saying this is a bad album by any means, obviously, but uh, obviously not my top album for a reason. And oh, it's still good though. I listen to it quite a lot for just playing it and just listening to it too. So next one, number six, is Polaris's Fatalism. This was another one, like I really loved Polaris and I got really into them. Yeah, you got your shirt there. I wish I'd gone to that concert with them and Ernst, but anyway, that was like the it was like the week or two after I got married, so it just wasn't gonna work out. Anyway, this album, I don't know if it's my favorite by them, but it still is very them again. So I just appreciate that they're, they're very the riffs and like just the whole songwriting is very much uh them. So I think I don't think there's too much else to say on that. So if you're a fan of Polaris, you'll definitely like this album. But the, I think I got around I became a fan of them when they're around the same time the second album came out. So I guess I'm still a little partial to that. But even then, like I listened to this a handful of times and still really like it. All right, number five is the one that we have in common, Silent Planet Super Bloom. That I was very much like you in terms of like them kind of falling off for me, but um, this one really brought me back. And the experimental part of it is what really drew me because it was just like a fresh, versus like how they were like very. Because they went from like a pretty complicated like guitar part and whatever, like it was very uh to oh they switched it up, and the results are really good. So for me, like I feel like after their 2016 album, um, they were kind of falling off for me a little bit. Not that other album, and the weird thing is, it's not that the other albums were bad, but like this one just drew me back in, and I'm really glad that they did this because it's really good. Um, let's see. Number four is Dayshells Pegasus. Dayshells uh, is a band uh, that I've really been into since Chailey got into his own like solo stuff, and I was really glad that he was doing another album. His guitar riffs are just really bouncy and catchy, and that's all. And his singing is phenomenal, like easily. And again, another one of like rock metal vocalists that I really really like. So that voice alone kind of carries his stuff. And yeah, I think with them, just like the first few songs of the album, like got me to really like it, and just listen to it a good bit there. So um, yeah, there's not much else to say on that. It's just there. Number three, War of Ages, Dominion. War of Ages, another band I've been following for a good long time, and they just keep popping out albums that are just in that like metalcore genre. This one was just like, and I feel like guitars get lower and lower. Not that all of them are in the same tuning, but like, I was surprised by like one of their singles, uh, being pretty like really heavy, but then they also can get really melodic too. So they've grown to be pretty diverse band, and always appreciate their guitar playing, and uh, the fact that their lyrics are very uh, good too. Like I like solid like Christian metalcore band. So I let's see. Number two, Currents, The Death We Seek. This was the first album that I of the year that I was really like, okay, this is definitely going to be one of my favorites, potentially album of the year. And I think it almost really made it because it obviously is number two. But this is the album I again like the riffs and just like the songwriting. I felt like, and I think like this one had a lot more hooks to it than in the previous albums, I would say. So I really appreciated that, and yeah, I just really liked how the overall approach to this. Uh, I think that's all I really gotta say on that one. But number one should be obvious. Beartooth put out an album last year. They put it out a day before my wedding. This was like, man, I knew from the singles that this was going to be maybe a little bit different, but Caleb Shomo just keeps hitting it out of the park for me, and keeps like banger after banger, album after album, just continues to amaze me. And what I really appreciate too is that Caleb's been on his like mental health journey, and I feel like not too long after he got to a good place, I was starting to get into a better place too. So for him to have that out, and me being in a place where I could again relate to some of the stuff that he has on there, um, just goes to show that like I appreciate him so much as a songwriter. And just even from the first song, Surface, where he was going a little bit lower with the vocals, and something that might be a little too, it's definitely the most palatable one for anyone that's not an initial fan of Beartooth, but it's still heavy, and yeah, just easily album of the year for me. I couldn't, I don't think there's any other way I could make that less than number one here. So that's it. That's with the 2023 albums that we have.
Mm. Yeah, both Beartooth and Polaris would have made my longer list easily. Both of those for me were also records that I've listened to a ton this year.
Yeah, it's so that's all the time we got, I think. But yeah, we're back. I'm gonna try to be doing more of this more
Hmm.
frequently as we are able to. And
Listen, I gotta get that Spotify money, bro.
yeah, maybe we'll start actually get some ads or I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Hmm.
But
But you
that'll
haven't
be
been
it.
paid for this already?
No, this is
Oh shoot.
this is just a hobby.
Your check must have gotten lost in the mail. I'll reach out to my people about that.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, so yeah, we'll see how frequent these will be. Ideally, I would like to keep this going monthly, but we we'll see. But thanks to anyone
You
that
got a
was.
busy life. You got a
Yeah,
busy life,
I do have a
and
busy life. I'm trying to pay off all this
you have your
debt.
wife, and I have my dogs. You know,
Gotta make sure all
we're
those mouths are fed, you know?
we're both equally busy, I'm sure.
All right. So yeah, next time we'll be getting into some more album reviews and well
2024, baby.
yeah,
Let's
2024.
go.
We'll be back for then. Hope you all keep hanging around. We'll see you then.
Toodles.